have for yourself that it takes moments of bravery. It takes time. Oh, I think we've got, yeah, there we go. Thank you. You know, it takes a community of people around you and it takes a certain kind of mindset. And sometimes you might feel lonely. Sometimes you might feel discouraged. And what I have noticed, I am not a runner. My daughter and my husband both are. And I have just been floored by the running community. I have been so amazed, so impressed, so in love with the climate and the mindset that surrounds runners and their community specifically. And Roxanne and I were talking one day about, you know, just how everybody needs to know these life lessons. It does not matter what you do in life, what your 9 to 5 is, or what you look like, or how old you are. These are lessons and a mindset that can strengthen anybody regardless of where they are. So I am just so honored. I get to kind of almost play moderator tonight. I am definitely not a runner, but I have two beautiful friends who inspire me daily, who I love so much. I'm so blessed and honored to call them friends of mine, and they are going to be sharing their tips and advice with you all tonight as well. So Brittany Mosier is one of my good friends. Our youngest, you know, babies are friends and we're in class together last year, and I've gotten to know her and love her. And she is just a literal ray of sunshine. And so I love that she's got the grit and the work behind the sunshine. It's not just all fluff. She definitely works so hard. And so she's going to be talking to you all and just kind of introducing you, letting you know a little bit about her background, and then her biggest life's moments that she has learned through this running journey. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself. And Miss Brittany, you may go ahead and take over. Just let everybody know a little bit about yourself. Oh, before we do that though, I do want everybody that's on this call, take a second on a post-it note or on your phone or whatever. I want you to write down 5 skills that you have that are desirable to employers. If you had to go get a brand new job today, if you had to market yourself, if you had to declare what talents and skills you have, write down 5 of them. And you get a bonus if you write one down that you would love to, you know, develop, but maybe you're not comfortable with it yet. I would say when I first started my business journey, I was uncomfortable with the word leadership. I cringed at it. I didn't feel like I was ready for it quite yet. It made me feel very vulnerable, like I was not deserving of the title. And now, 6 years later, I've been a business owner. And it's something that I know just par for the course. I've developed leadership skills. I know it's required of where I am in life. And so while we're talking and while these ladies are giving you those lessons, I want you to be thinking about what makes you unique. What makes you strong? What are your skills? What do you bring to the table? Because many times, often than not, unfortunately, we dim our light and we don't realize that we really do have amazing skills and we really do have a lot to bring to the table. It's just hard for us sometimes to see it and declare it. So while they're talking, do me a favor and just jot down 5 of your unique skills that make you wonderful. And hopefully they'll inspire you to write down some new ones as well. So, all right. So without further ado, here is Miss Brittany, and she is going to take over. Thank you, Brittany.
Thanks, Julie. Um, so yeah, just to introduce myself, like I know Julie already did, but just a little background. I did not do any sports growing up. I did actually nothing until a few years ago, and I started picking up running. So I did my first 5K, let's see, about 10 years ago, and I ran my first marathon when my daughter was a year and a half old, and she's now 8. So I haven't been a runner for like my entire life or anything. I kind of picked it up in adulthood. So just so you kind of know, I now am trying to run a full marathon or an ultra marathon, which is I'm going for the 50Ks, which is like 31 to 40 miles. So I'm trying to run one of those in every state. So I've run now 27 full or ultra marathons in 21 states. I actually just ran one in Georgia this past Saturday. So I just got home yesterday from that one. And I'm going to run in Alabama for state number 22 next month. So anyway, you're such a force. You're sweet. So anyway, so my first point that I thought about was failure is essential to success. So I remember one of my first half marathons I was running. I actually got to mile, I think, 7 or something. And I called my husband and I said, I am giving up. I cannot do this. I need you to come pick me up. And he was like, oh, okay. I'm on my way. So I went and I felt like such a failure. I hated that moment. I hated it. I hated it. But I ended up thinking like, okay, what can I learn from this? Like I was dehydrated, so I needed to think like, okay, what do I need to do to hydrate better? I ran out of fuel, so I thought, okay, what do I need to eat and how often do I need to eat in order to not completely have my wheels fall off like just happened? So I needed to do better training, so I did more checking into what like plans worked for me, and I ended up finding a couple different plans that better equipped me to do that. And I went back. It was about let's see, 3 years ago, and I ended up running that exact same course again, and it now holds my best time. I ended up shaving like 30 minutes off of my best time at that course. And so it was like a redemption road. So I ended up doing um, what I once like defeated me. I ended up going back and getting my best race time by far at that exact same course. So it was intimidating to go back and toe that line, but where I failed once, but I ended up succeeding more than I ever thought possible. So that's point number one. The next point is instant gratification isn't achievable with running or really many things in life. You really have to start setting manageable goals. So, like for me, like and it never fails, when I sign up for a marathon and I look at the training plan for a marathon or an ultra marathon, it is so beyond daunting and it can be completely out of my realm of even thinking it's possible, even though I've done it before. Every single time it's intimidating. And I can't expect myself to go out there if I've not trained for a while and just go out and run 20 miles. Like you have to set manageable goals. So make sure you set short-term goals within the big picture. When I first signed up for my first race, I could not run a tenth of a mile. I'm not kidding. I literally could not. And so what I did was I ran around my neighborhood and I would add one mailbox a day at a time. And I would just a little bit more every single day. And so I would think, okay, tomorrow I'm going to try and hit the next mailbox. And I just would add a little bit every single day until I made it. I remember the first time I made it one loop and it was a half a mile. And that was a huge win for me. So it's not like I have always been like long distance. I remember I set those short-term goals within a big goal. And that's kind of how you need to go about that. So another thing with anything you do in life, you get out what you get out of it, what you put into it. You can't expect to, you know, go run a marathon without putting in the training that you need for it. I learned that with that half that I failed miserably. So you need to, set those goals and just be willing to put in the hard work when you don't want to. Me waking up at 4:30 in the mornings to go run is not always fun, especially in the winter when it's cold. So you have to be willing to get uncomfortable, put yourself out there, and like stay focused. And it can be really challenging at times, but trust me, it's worth it. And so it helps to set those goals and keep going. So, um, number four is one of my favorite things. Keep heading towards the finish line, even when others cross before you. That's what I love about running is I have never won a race. I've gotten in like the top three in my age group, which I honestly don't care. Like I'm not in it to win it. This is not my thing. But you just keep heading towards it. I never just quit a race because other people beat me to it. So just stay focused on that. And that's what I love about a whole race setting is everybody celebrates everybody's victory. So if you want to go to the next slide,
I
whoever
just
has
want to say
it,
amen to that. Stay in your lane.
it's true. So, um, yeah, and number five, don't let nerves keep you from your journey. It is nerve-wracking. It is so nerve-wracking to think, what if I fail? What if I get injured? What if I whatever? You just have to not let that keep you from it because if I had let that keep me from starting this, I never would have run one race. Every single race, even on Saturday, I get nervous before every single one. I do. I am expecting so much out of my body that I don't take it for granted ever. I actually say a prayer of thanks every single mile that I hit because I don't take it for granted. I have seen so much happen between the start and the finish line. And so I know what can happen out there, and I don't take for granted the fact that I can get it done, but I don't let those nerves keep me from trying. And that goes for anything in life. I mean, you can say that for literally anything, but that's just an example from running. So, number six, goals are great, but you might need to adjust with where you're at in life. I've hit some injuries these past few years, and it has taken me time that I need to take time off or I need to way cut back. Last summer, 6 weeks before my ultra last summer, I had runner's knee, and that is like not great. And so I went to my doctor, and he got me on a plan. We way limited my miles, we eased me back in. It was a whole thing. I had to go see him all the time to get my knee scraped, which was super painful. Um, and you have to readjust. I couldn't do the planning that I wanted to do, but I needed to readjust where I was at. And because I did that, I was able to still do my ultra. But there was one marathon I'd signed up for, and I just felt like it was not wise for me to continue on that training, and I backed out of it. And it was hard to do, but I knew that's where I was, and that's just what I had to do. So goals are great, but just keep in mind your long-term plan. You don't want to do something stupid in the short term and completely hurt yourself or whatever. So um and one of my favorite quotes is champions aren't made in the ring, they are just merely recognized there. Um, you see a lot, if you go to a race, you see a lot of, um, you know, all the finish line, and you think, oh, that is so great. But you don't ever see everything that goes into getting to that finish line. All the early morning sacrifices that you do. I go to bed super early because I have to get up super early. My family is super supportive, and I couldn't do this without all of their support. All the food that I have to think about eating. I mean, everything. There's so much that goes into a race finish. And like I said, with other things in life, that's the same thing. You can see someone super successful doing something super amazing, but you don't see all the hard work that it took to get to that point. And so don't let that intimidate you, but let it just like really inspire you to see that, hey, like they put in a lot of hard work, and you can do that too. So those are just a few of the quick things that I thought of that I've learned these past few years. So I think that's it.
Awesome. Yes. Well, okay, y'all, the last slide with all the bling. Okay, check my bling. But this is what's cool. This is what's cool. Oh, Dan just wrote it in the comments. Dan was one of my he helped train me this season. And he texted me the week before the marathon and said, the training was the marathon. This is like the victory lap. And it like made me burst out in tears, as did everything the week before this marathon, because it was such a big deal to me. So the first thing I'm going to start with is, my name is Roxanne. I have the privilege of working in gratitude with a non-for-profit with Julie and also our company. And it's just been so, so, so great. And she has been the hugest, as she always is, cheerleader, supporter of me in this. She sent me encouragement all along the way. So I'm just so grateful. And I really am going to talk about like those 5 things that you guys wrote down. Trust me, they're going to be related to running. So first, I just want to ask you guys, this is my finish line picture. What do you guys see? You can unmute, you can put it in the comments. What do you guys see in this picture? You can write a really sweaty looking rough human. Pride, yeah. I definitely have looked better, y'all. Smiling, totally. Cute, awesome. So I'm going to tell you guys more about the journey, just like Brittany was sharing, the journey to get to this picture, okay? And so it's going to be a little rough. So the first thing is, this is, that's a TikTok, but the first thing is I don't know how many people are on this call that are thinking, I can't do that. I could never do that. If that's you, just say, yeah, I could never do that. Or maybe you would never want to do that. Cause let's face it, it's a little nuts to run a marathon. I'm not going to lie. But whatever it is, if there's something that you have like internally, like sometimes people call it a calling. I think that sometimes mystifies it. Sometimes it's just like something in you that you want to step into that you're afraid of. Okay. So and I'm going to try not to cry. I'm a crier, but 5 years ago, okay, before I started this marathon training, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. If you don't know what that is, I'm so glad you don't. It's 0 out of 10 recommend. If I could write a strongly worded Google review, there would be some 4-letter words in there. I don't like having this. It's really hard. It's changed my entire life. But this is this crazy thing that happened right after I was diagnosed. I ran the Chicago Marathon 15 years ago and 17 years ago. I haven't thought about running a marathon again in years, but all of a sudden when I was diagnosed, I felt like my life was really limited. And I felt like, oh, you'll never run a marathon again. And right behind that, I really feel like for me, it was the voice of God saying, yeah, you will if you want to. So the first thing I just want to say to you guys is like, if something seems impossible, but you feel pulled toward it, I'm going to ask you tonight just to imagine what that would look like to take one step toward it. And we're not going to like mystify it. I'm going to get very real with what it took. So the first thing is a tip from running that I say on all of life is you need to challenge your limiting beliefs, right? And a lot of people will say, well, I have so much doubt, so it must not be the right choice for me. I'm sorry, absolutely not. Doubt is absolutely a companion when you are fighting for more meaning in your life, for more purpose, to follow your passion. Self-doubt, listen, before this call, I literally saw all of Brittany's medals and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had imposter syndrome. Like, she got all this bling and I got one little bling over here. And I'm like, and I right away, I recognized it and I'm like, heck no, because her story matters and I can cheer for her and my story matters and I can cheer for me and your story matters. If you're on this call and you want to do something different or more, I don't care if it's running, I don't care if it's a 5K, you can do it. If it's starting a new business, volunteering somewhere, saving money, putting something away for your kids, doing something, you can do it. So the finish line picture, you guys, started with the first long run. And I agree with Brittany. When I got the printout, I printed out the Kara running group that I joined, which was amazing. The most supportive people. Like, it's crazy to me. I'm gonna talk about this later with community, but these people were all strangers to me, like what, 5-6 months ago. And I count so many of them as friends. So I printed out this schedule and I literally looked at it and I started crying because I said, I can't even run 5 miles right now. There is no way in 4, 5, 6 weeks, I'm going to be running 13. There is no way, right? But this is what I decided to do. I didn't think about week 13. I thought about week 1. I said, I'm going to show up for week 1. So week 1 and week 2, these are screenshots of like my TikToks. I kind of like share my journey on social media. And this is one of the things I said was you can push past things to do hard things. This was a 6-mile run, you guys. That was the longest I had run in over 10 years, right? And especially since I struggle with foot drop and a lot of my symptoms, right? I was hospitalized in March and I couldn't walk. And this running 6 miles was an absolute miracle for me. And the first long run was mental. And so what I want to say to everybody watching, now I am never going to be an elite runner. I'm never going to I finished probably 3 hours after Brittany, but it doesn't matter because guess what? We get the same medal at the end. Right. And it's everybody versus themselves. And I think that's such a metaphor for life. If you can stay in your lane, find your purpose, you can clap loud for other people because you're not their competition. You can be for them because what I know from training for this marathon is it was half physical, but it was probably even more than half mental. It was mental. So this is my advice, as a fellow sojourner, right? Decide that you want to do something, whatever it is, new job, new, creative endeavor you want to try. I started a photography business 10 years ago and I had to really get the mindset to even believe I could do that, right? And I'm so glad I did. I can't imagine my life and where I would be if I hadn't started that entrepreneurship journey. But you have to take messy action. You are not going to look like somebody who has been doing this for 10 years the first time you start. Right? I jokingly say like this year, somebody broke the world record for the Chicago Marathon. If you watch video of that guy running and video of me running, it doesn't even look like we're doing the same sport. So different, right? I am just in my own lane, running my own race, and it's totally mindset. And then I wrote this point down, and then I actually thought about it, and I put this in parentheses, but you have to own your own failures, right? Unapologetic growth is messy. It's not going to look pretty. It's not going to be linear. But what is real failure? If I were actually going to define failure, I would say it's not trying. It's not trying and failing. Like if I say I'm going to have this many minute mile, or I'm going to start this business and by this date, I'm going to have this much, it's not failure to try that and not reach that. To me, it would be failure to sit back and let that opportunity pass you by when you knew you were called to it. So for me, failure is experimenting. It's trying new things. I hope I'm going to be 44 tomorrow. And I hope that while there is still breath in my body, I am always trying and failing at new things. I really do hope. My whole life, I want to be trying and failing at new things because it means I'm fully alive, right? And I also think this is a really important point. You don't discover your true self in the glory moments. It's easy to be a great, kind, wonderful, loving person when everybody around you is celebrating, when everybody thinks you're great too. It's a lot harder to find out who you are when things have been taken from you, when things are not going your way, when you have so much doubt and disbelief, when you're in the hospital and unable to like function. That's when you find out who you really are. And so I would just encourage you to embrace that as part of the journey, because it is needed to become the person you're going to become at the finish line. And again, I'm speaking metaphorically. And then Julie and I talked about this. I think this is especially important for women. Can I get an amen? Confidence in yourself and your ability and your capability and your gifts and your talents is not arrogance. Okay? If you know that because this is the way that I believe the world works. If you have things that you're supposed to use in the world to, provide for your family, to love others well, to lead other people, to be an example, to follow other people's example and get better, those things are not meant for you to think you're the best or to be arrogant. They are meant for you to live in confidence, because when we live in confidence, we step out into new places. I'm going to talk about this next, but I just wanted to play the first few seconds of this, because this was, I think a lot of people, when they see that finish line photo, they forget that this is where I was in March. So you guys, I was in a dark hole of a place in March. And that's why I want to tell you the real story. And I think that the hard builds what you need to get to the finish line. I love this quote from James Clear. I won't read it to you guys, but you can absolutely read it. I think sometimes we make this so complicated. This is the bottom line. I got out there the first week and I did 6 miles. And it makes me cry. I proved to myself that I could run 6 miles. And then I wondered if I could keep going. That's literally what it was. It is not this like, I have so much more potential than other people. I just stuck with it. And embracing and cultivating your unique potential and gifts start with being curious. I think a lot of us as adults, like if you get in a room with kids, this is why I love my kids, right? Julie's daughter is there with us. Like we ask kids all the time, what do you dream of being? What do you want to be? What is your dream? What do you want to do? When we turn old, like I am, all of a sudden we stop dreaming. Why? We should have big dreams, audacious things we want to do, to make the world a better place, to live our best life, to live abundantly. And I think taking risks that are aligned with that, it was a risk for me to go out there. It was actually a risk too, because I showed up at that running group, not knowing a person there, not knowing a soul there. I showed up by myself because I didn't know anybody else who wanted to do it. And I trusted that the right people I would be connected with. And I was, you guys, they were such a gift to me. I can't even tell you. I got a really bad injury in August. So I was like 6 weeks out from the marathon. Dan, I don't know if he's still on this call, but he texted me almost every day or every other day to make sure I was okay and to remind me, you can still do this. It makes me cry. Like, just be aligned with people that want to see you win, And then I want to say, normalize daily choices to keep promises to yourself. Just like Brittany, I want to amen that. I set my alarm. I got my butt up when I wanted to go drink a margarita at night. I didn't, so that I could get up and run at 5 a.m. I made choices aligned with what the version of myself I wanted for that season, and normalizing failures and hard parts. Get with people who will be honest with you about the failures and the hard parts. Everybody wants to show their end story, their finish line photo. I actually think one of my superpowers is that I show the journey, not just the finish line photo, because the finish line photo, that person only became that person by all of those in between moments. And you have to celebrate wins along the way. I remember like when I did 16 miles, I thought that is an insane long distance. I told my husband, I was like, we're going out to celebrate. I'm going to be wearing flats. Yes, my feet are shredded at that point. It felt horrible, but I was like, I want to celebrate. It felt like the race to me because I had never run that far in so long. And it was just like celebrating those small moments of showing up for yourself are really important. So if you're building a business, if you are trying something new, if you're showing up at a dance class, if you're doing strength training, celebrate when you show up. I've showed up every day for a month, 5 days a week at this class. I'm going to celebrate myself. Shout yourself out. I think, again, it doesn't come from a place of arrogance. It comes from this desire that you want to also, you would congratulate others. And so I want to feel that for myself. You also will only feel, I think, proud of yourself when you push past what you thought was possible to discover what is. And I, again, want to say, as somebody who is a former overachiever for the approval of the world, I have let a lot of that go, friends. And actually, like today, I had an infusion and I rested. I did not work. I needed to. And so sometimes actually pushing yourself out of your comfort zone means resting. And I want to especially say that to women. It means asking for help. It means resting. But resting is not quitting. I want to say that. Resting is not quitting. If you have a goal and something big, you can choose to push through and see what's possible. And that is what makes you proud. I was just telling my daughter 2 weeks ago, she's in basketball and she wanted to quit. And she had a really bad loss, really embarrassing. Kids were making fun of them from the bleachers. And I reminded her, those kids were in the bleachers. You were on the court, right? You were on the court. Those kids were in the bleachers, but she wanted to quit. She didn't quit. She had the most amazing 2 games I have ever seen her play last week. We're all crying. We were congratulating her. And I said, do you understand that if you had quit, you would have missed this moment to make yourself proud? So what I want to say to you, friends, is don't miss moments to make yourself proud. Don't miss opportunities to make yourself proud because it's so worth it. Okay, my last slide. So this is my finish line photo, right? The glory one. This is the one the camera captured right after I walked through. And I had sweet friends that were watching, but celebrate who you become on the journey. The reason why this makes me cry, but I can easily post this picture, and I think that person bawling her eyes out, who has definitely looked better, is beautiful. And the reason I think that is because she never gave up. And she told herself she was going to do this, and she pushed past through a lot of stuff that other people might not never understand, and showed up and did it. And I became more authentic. I became more confident. Like I told everybody, I wore that medal the day of and the day after, and nobody could tell me I was not Beyonce. Like, you could not talk to me. My husband was like, you need to simmer down. And I was like, I cannot, I will not. And again, I say that jokingly. It's not from a place of arrogance. It's just from a place of feeling so proud of what you pushed through to get there. So I just want to say to you guys, friends, like, we want to celebrate you. Overcoming setbacks also, right, will prepare you and make you proud of yourself. And in life or business, whatever you work towards, most people will never see the real work. Most people will not see it. They will congratulate you in the Facebook photo, but you have to be okay, because the journey is the work. The journey is the glory. It's who you're becoming in that, right? Clap for yourself. Get comfortable being like, you know what? Because this is the thing about people's approval. One day you'll get it, the next day you're dead to them, right? It's so fickle. The world is fickle. You have to learn to clap for yourself, be proud of yourself, and do what's aligned. I talk about alignment so much with the women I mentor in business too, because you have to know who you are. That way, when things come at you, you're like, that's not aligned to me. I don't need to be a part of that. And not that I hate on it. It's just not who I am, right? I want to clap for other people, encourage others, celebrate others. I will not participate in scarcity mindset, right? And then align yourself with people that support you. Knowing that I had that running group that, again, were strangers just a few months ago, but became friends and knew parts, like intimate parts of my stories. I told my husband once, I was like, I actually spend more time talking with them than I do with you these days. Because we were just out there running so much together. So choose wisely, friends. If you're choosing people to align yourself with life and business that are always bringing you down, just be careful. Choose wisely. And then if you need to make radical edits, like, sometimes things have to go, right? We in the marathon season, it's a lot of like, staying up late or eating crap or, all that kind of stuff. But in life, sometimes it's leaving toxic environments. Sometimes it's saying no to a business opportunity that would be maybe more, what's the word? Like, for me, a client that would be like a solid, hey, that's a paycheck, versus something that I'm really called to do or I really feel aligned with, that's a more of a risk. Like, make radical edits. and be willing to go with them, right? And then celebrate growth along the way, not just your major goals. So that is what I wanted to share. Thank you guys so much. And Julie's going to wrap us up.
All right, y'all. I am the non-runner coming in. You can always spot the elementary teachers because Roxanne and I used to be teachers and we refer to everybody as friends. So stick around long enough. We'll probably ask you if you need to go potty or something. Who knows? I'm here though for the mindset. I am here for, the mental part. I want to tell you that the slight edge of your days. I read this book. I don't know if you all have ever heard of it. It's called The Slight Edge. It's by Jeff Olson. I really love it because the truth of the matter is you all are in the 5%. You're on this call or you're a runner, like wherever you are in life, you are the top 5% of people. And Brittany and I were actually talking about this today. You kind of will sometimes feel a little whisper. You'll feel a nudge that you're meant for more, that, whatever your journey is, that you want to go after it. Maybe it's just something as simple as you just wonder what happens if you actually push yourself and you never stop pushing and you see what you're actually capable of. I think oftentimes we want to be safe, and safe means in the crowd, and the crowd means average. And for us on this call, in some capacity of our life, we have opted to stand outside the crowd and we have opted to be the 5%. And sometimes that's a little lonely. Sometimes that's a weird feeling. And so that's why it's so important for you to surround yourself in a community like this, or running community, or, wherever you are, and stay around the campfire, stay around people that are like that. So Roxanne, if you'll go ahead and go to the next slide, I'm going to share some really big takeaways, because I know one thing that is hard, especially when you're going down a journey, when you're going for goals, you will get pushback from people around you and you'll be confused by that. Maybe you'll even feel let down. Maybe you'll wonder why people aren't as supportive or cheering you on. You're working so hard and you're putting yourself out there and you're sacrificing so much. And sometimes it might feel lonely and alone. And this is why science tells us that we hear a version of no, don't do that, get down, stop doing that, be quiet, no, you're not allowed to do that, don't touch. We will hear versions of no 40,000 times before the age of 5. Like, that breaks my heart as a mom. And I know I'm guilty of that. I am so guilty of that myself. But we've only heard yes 5,000 times. So our children, our bodies, our DNA, our brains are automatically programmed to identify the negative in life first, because that's what we're used to hearing. That's what we're most comfortable with. As much as we don't like it, we are automatically programmed to dim our light. 1 out of 20 people will ever achieve their goals in their life, because the ones that are achieving their goals are the ones that stood outside the crowd, whatever it is. I don't know a lot of friends that run a lot of marathons. I definitely don't know a lot of people that have run 27 marathons. Brittany has stood outside the crowd. Roxanne, in so many areas of her life, she's amazing if you know her. She stands outside the crowd. And once you stand outside the crowd and you get comfortable with that feeling, you never want to go back into the crowd. Because yeah, it's lonely. Yeah, you're doubting yourself. Yeah, you wonder why people aren't clapping for you sometimes or supporting you more. But man, does it feel good to be that 5% and know that you're doing something for you. And then you're also living that testimony for your children and your families or your friends. You're an example for them. Not that you're perfect and, unflawed, but because of the flaws, you are doing these things. And so why do people put you down? Why do they not support you? Is because they're going to be the last to clap for you, because there's only 2 ways for people to be better than you: tear down the building, right? Or build a bigger one. And which one is going to be easier for people to do? It's going to be easier for people to tear you down. And so that's why sometimes it's crickets. That's why sometimes you don't get a, man, I'm so proud of you, Roxanne, for, achieving this. Or when Brittany's done, yet another marathon, she's still working hard. She still deserves the clap and the praise and the love, but it gets quiet after a while, because it's easier just to ignore it, because it's a lot harder to build another one and beat her at it, right? And a man can fail many times, but he's not a failure until he starts to blame somebody else. Like Roxanne said, you're not going to fail unless you're not trying. All right, so go ahead and switch to the next slide for me. And this I really love. I want you to pay attention to the arrows down at the bottom. Okay, this is basically the premise of the whole slight edge book. I'm basically giving you the cliff notes in 2 slides here, okay? So the slight edge curve is what you see down in the bottom corner, right? One thing I want to point out, at the beginning, where it's starting, it looks the same, right? So on the outside, I'm just going to keep on picking on Brittany. On the outside, Brittany and I, our lives probably look a lot alike, right? Especially if we fast forward 10 years ago. But bit by bit, Brittany started to eat a little healthier. Then she started to run a little bit more, right? And then she kept going. And then she did 1 marathon. Well, bit by bit, maybe I was going to McDonald's. Maybe I wasn't working out. Maybe I was taking naps, you know? Bit by bit, your habits will compound on top of each other. Whatever your goals are in life, maybe it's to start a business, maybe it's to go, back to school and get another degree. Maybe it's, to just become healthier overall, whatever it is. Maybe it is just to read more. Maybe it's to spend more time with your children. But bit by bit, your decisions will compound. So you are either voting for your future or you're voting against your future. In the beginning, it looks the same. Right? In the beginning, we're all basically, teenagers in our 20s. We're all basically on the same platform of health, finances. We all kind of look alike. But I can tell you, I'm 41, and I feel like this is the age where we really start to see that gap widen between who has started to take care of themselves and who hasn't. And I know that gap's only going to widen as I get older. So over time, you're going to see it go one of 2 ways. So I'm going to do a little activity with you guys, okay? If you can, just mentally in your head, if you don't have paper and pencil. If you do have paper and pencil, I want you, or your phone, I want you to have something, okay? Because you're either making a vote to improve your life or make it worse over time. There's no in between. That is the only rule with this activity. You're not allowed to say, oh, I'm the same, I'm in the middle. There's no such thing as middle. Because even when you're treading water, your feet are still moving, right? You're still moving. So it's going to be a vote, plus or down. All right. So you're either going to do like an up and down arrow or a plus and minus, something to notice. Is it improving or is it getting worse? So I would just do like arrows up and down. Your health. Are you currently improving your health right now? Or are you not? And if you're not, it's going down. If you are taking steps, then it's a yes. And you don't have to put it in the chat. Marlene's like, ding. You can, that's totally fine. All right. But I want you to take notes. Okay. The next one is your happiness. This is where it gets vulnerable. And that's just between you and Jesus. Like that's nobody's business what you're putting on that paper. It's a plus or a minus, or it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever works for your style. Your happiness. Is it going up or down right now? And there's no middle. You have to pick. And you feel it in your core, right? You feel it in your stomach. As soon as I say it, you know which way it's going. Your friendships and your relationships. Is that plus or minus? And keep in mind, these are seasons too. If I asked you these same things in 3 months, you might have a completely other turnout, right? And that's okay. Yeah. Your finances. What are your finances? Plus or minus? Got a sassy 13-year-old in the corner. Weighing in. Your career. Is your career plus or minus? And then the last one, my favorite. Your positive impact in the world. What are you doing to make a positive impact on the world? Are you actively working on that or are you not? And now out of those, no matter how many minuses you have, and I hope that you're vulnerable and honest with yourself, I want you to identify the one that kind of hurt your heart the most. Which one is the one that you are avoiding? Because what happens over time, the folks that are going up that slight edge, right, that are going up that curve, like I said, Brittany was like with her, health and all of that over time, those are going to be the people that take responsibility for things. Those are going to be the doers. Those are going to be the ones that are hitting their goals, right? those are going to be the ones that are taking the reins of power and control back in their hands. The ones that are going down over time, you know those people. You could probably even tell me a name of somebody that you know is going down on the slight edge. Don't put it in the chat. This ain't like the Ricky Lake show or something. All right. Those are the ones that are blaming everybody. Those are the ones that are always the victim. Those are the ones that things are being done to them, right? They're just sitting and life is happening to them. The ones that are out there living life and actually doing the do, those are the ones that are going up. Those are the ones that are standing outside the crowd. Those are the 5%. And life is harder earlier. So those folks that lay around on the couch, right, and they don't work out, they don't do anything in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s. What was the second category? Happiness was the second one. Those folks that are laying on the couch, right? Well, when Brittany's out there practicing and running miles and all of that for her marathon training, I called it practicing, training, right? She's out there working and I'm on the couch. It's easier for me in the beginning, isn't it? Because I'm the one laying on the couch. But when I'm 65, who's going to have a harder life then? Is it the one that was running when she was younger and is stronger and more fit? Or is it the one that was laying on the couch? So life gets harder for those that go down as they age. Those where the curve is going up, life gets easier for them. Now think of this with mental health. If there is something you're avoiding in life, if there is, maybe a discussion you need to have with somebody, or there's a hurdle in your life, maybe there's like a struggle with addiction, or maybe you really need to confront somebody or have a hard conversation, right? And you're avoiding it. It's easy for you right now, but it's only going to continue to fester and cause a problem. You're going to have the hard either way. Do you want the hard to be now, so life is easier, or do you want the hard to be later when you're older? Either way. All right.
Julie, I think that's so interesting. It's so true in like marriage. If you let something go, right? When I have gone to marriage therapy with my husband, it's like the counselor always says, the only thing you can't get past is resentment and bitterness. You can get past so many other things, but if you let it go for such a long period, and I think about that, I'm in this brain health class right now, and we're learning about brain reserve for people affected by MS. We're using more of our brain. And if you do not use it, you lose it. So a lot of people will say to me, why would you push yourself and go run? It is because if I do not, I am losing it at a higher rate than other people. It's like the curve is even bigger. So this stuff is really important.
Yeah. It's just, and it's better just for our peace, right?
Yeah.
And when our heart's at peace and when our brain's at peace and we're not facing battles, then we're able to be healthier overall. So what happens when there's a gap? Oh, we'll go back one slide.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So you're fine. So there's going to be things that happen. So if you have your goal and there is a gap, a couple of things are going to happen. You're probably going to start making excuses. Excuses are made out of fear. Excuses only widen the gap between where you currently are and your goal. Excuses are what people put up when they're honestly just afraid. They want to take the responsibility off of themselves. And eventually those people will quit, right? And runners will see that, people that are maybe wanting to walk in their faith, they'll see people stop going to church, right? They'll see people that like all of a sudden, they start to diet and then it doesn't stick because we know diets aren't best anyway. That's not a healthy, sustainable, pattern. It just needs to be healthier overall. Some people will quit, give up. They will blame, of course, because they're on that downward, and they will walk away. Or you will be the 5% and you will constantly move towards those goals, and you will be chomping at them bit by bit. Like Brittany said, mailbox by mailbox, you will keep on moving no matter how slow it is. All right. So we already did the activity. One thing I do want to say to you all is I hope that you have realized what your strengths are. What are those pluses? So if you'll put in the chat, what was one plus or thumbs up you gave yourself when I was listing them off? I said health, happiness, your friendships and relationships. That was kind of one category. Your personal, I didn't even say personal development. I skipped over that one. I'm sorry. There was a personal development. I don't think I said that. Finances, career, and your positive impact on the world. Happiness and joy. I love that. Roxanne said that's one of her strengths. And you have your strengths that you wrote down at the beginning. What are your skills and your talents? If you were to be employed by somebody, hopefully you've realized that you've got some more than you realize. You are the 5% because you're on this call. You do want to stand out in a good way, be brave, and you want to see how far you really can go when you keep pushing yourself. And then hopefully you also privately have an area that you know you want to work on, and it helps you to identify, because you're not sitting in the middle. You're not going to be a duck just paddling its feet. You're going either up or down. And you know that the down is only going to make life harder for you in the long run. So we had one quote at the end.
Yes. And I hope too, like in this metaphors for running, I hope that there is things for way more than people that want to run, right? Because as you, Julie and I have talked about this a lot, as you try things, and even if you quote unquote fail, but you get that feedback and experiment and keep going, confidence is built by repetition, right? Every Saturday I showed up for a long run, it got easier, even though it was growing in length, because I knew I could show up and finish. You will only get that if you keep showing up. So whatever those 5 things were you wrote, or if you struggled to write down 5, you wrote down 2, 3. I just want you to ask yourself and dream, like, what would it look like to use this and develop it to an even greater capacity? Like, does it mean a volunteer position? Does it mean taking on something new, or pulling back, or saying no to things that are not aligned with that? Whatever it is, we just want to encourage you guys to do that.
Oh, I was trying to type in the chat. I love you, Bri. Yes, you guys have so many strengths. You guys, so many times, especially women, we dim our light. We make ourselves small for the comfort of others. That is not being boastful and arrogant. You are allowed to be strong and beautiful, and know that you have so many strengths and gifts, no matter what they are. Yeah. So just keep moving forward. You're only failing if you stop, right? At the end of the day, perseverance, showing up, consistency, like Roxanne said, showing up every Saturday. It's a great substitute for talent, because many times if you're consistent, you're persevering, and you are showing up, you're beating 95% of the people out there regardless, because you just stuck with it. Because like I said, when people feel that tension in that gap, right? Most people just give up and they quit and they blame others and they walk away. But you are not like that, because you were made for more. So that's all I have. Roxanne, Brittany, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to say.
I think so. This is so fun. I liked meeting all of you guys. That was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll be cheering you on, Brittany. I won't be running this year, but I'll be a cheerleader.
Oh, I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of you too.
Thank you so much for calling in. Brittany, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
I know this isn't like usually your thing, and you did amazing. And Roxanne, you're just an inspiration.
She's
So
so
I'm
inspiring, truly amazing.
Oh.
Love it. All
But
right.
I will stop recording. If anyone has any questions though, you can totally unmute and ask it. We're open books, you know? And then if not, you can totally hop off. Thank you everybody for sharing your time with us. Like, I feel like it's such a gift when someone chooses to see someone else. And I felt that you guys came here because you wanted to hear and learn, and I'm thankful for your time. So we're thankful. Thanks, you guys.
Love it.
All right. If anyone has questions, go for it.
And you can unmute yourself.